Welcome to the Pointy End. I'm Keith Sutherland. Today my guest is Councillor James Williams, contesting the seat of Whipstick again. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Keith. Great to be here, and happy birthday for yesterday, Keith.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's awful, isn't it, getting older? But anyway, we're still here.
Exactly.
Now, you must have had to pinch yourself and think it was Christmas being #1 ballot position on the paper, because that's got to be worth some extra votes to you, of course.
Oh, look, no doubt, Keith. And yes, I was wrapped personally. It's great to get that top position. But realistically, still got to work hard, got to get out there, put my voice out there, make sure people know why I'm standing and what I'm standing for. So I'm looking forward to having a chat to you today.
Good. Now, the other discussion point has been Team Whipstick, and
yes,
there's yourself, Councillor Peter Cox, and Michelle Goldsmith from the endorsed Greens candidates. So you're doing a sort of a team of 3. Tell us the logic behind that, because to me, I think it makes a lot of sense that you've probably got similar ideals and things like that, but tell us the logic behind Team Whipstick.
Well, I think, Keith, what we bring to the table is something quite different in terms of the 3 of us. Peter lives and breathes, I guess, Eagle Hawk. Been a fantastic representative out there, representing the people of Eagle Hawk, but the broader people of Bendigo as well, strong on his ideals and ideas. Michelle seems to be the same. She's got some very strong ideas. Her background as a nurse, I guess, give her a very good background. She's dealt in mental health. It's an area I actually deal in myself. But I think the 3 of us provide a diverse range of views and ideas. As I've learned on council, it's not all about one thing. We have to be across a number of issues, and it's trying to find that balance in regards to it. So I think the unique set of skills Michelle can bring and Peter and myself, complement each other. I'm very rural focused, I guess, and business focused in terms of what I do, but I'm strong on the environment too. I have a huge environmental background. Michelle has a strong social and I guess working background in the city here with the hospitals, and Peter Cox, well, he's just been a delight to work with.
How do you get your message out? Now, when you go out, obviously letterbox dropping and things like that, do you put your sort of 1, 2, 3 and obviously having #1 position now, because you don't have the envelope going out with your preferences in them? So how do you get that message out that you are Team Whipstick? I know about it, a lot of the public do, but there's a lot of people out there apathetic when it comes to council elections.
Yeah, there is, Keith, and I guess it's difficult. We've just retained our own identity. So what we've done is just shared the load in terms of promoting ourselves out in the community. So when I go out, I will talk about Michelle and Peter as well. I'll provide them with a pamphlet from each of us, but ultimately they'll make their decisions, I guess, as individuals, and they know who they like to vote for. There's no doubt we do hold different positions, Peter, Michelle and myself, on certain things, but that's fine. Peter and Michelle have both demonstrated they have the ability to listen, to move on and make decisions. And I think that's really important, that once we've made a decision that we move on. There's always more issues, new issues, and more work to do. So not getting bogged down, making sure we work hard for our community and support it. So Michelle in the middle of town, Peter out at Eagle Hawk, and myself. I now live in Strathdale, but I've certainly got a strong rural background, and I chair a lot of committees, I guess, both at a regional and state level.
Well, you come from the rural part of town, so you've got it all covered with that. Now, I'm a long-time council watcher, and I've never seen so many candidates nominate. There was 32, 10 in yours and 10 at Epiloc and 12 at Lockwood, which rather surprised me, because I thought that'd be the least contested, and it's probably the most contested.
Yeah, look, I always knew there'd be a large number. I was surprised, like you, with Lockwood. I thought maybe, Epiloc and Whipstick Ward. But if you look at per head of population, it's actually not that big a field when you compare it to some of the other shires, and municipalities around the state. We look after 35,000 people. There are about 20-something thousand votes in our ward, and it's 1,000 square kilometres. So the task itself is absolutely enormous. I guess in the old single wards, 2 or 3 candidates was usually the case, but that still equates to something like 30 candidates, doesn't it? And that. So I look at that. There's no doubt council's profile has been lifted, if not for the right reasons, random mosque and other issues like that. And I think they've been quite divisive issues as well, Keith. So I guess the challenge is to get a good council, a council that will work together, that can make the decisions that need to be made and move on. And for me, that's very important. The ability, if you get rolled on the council floor, to accept the decision's made by the majority, not by individual councils, and move on for the benefit of the council. If I look back over this council term, we've actually implemented, I guess, through our strategic plans, probably most of what was on the table for the last 10 years. It has been incredible what this council has been able to deliver, and that's a bit about the finances, about the support of both state and federal governments for this region. For me, it demonstrates that this city is growing quickly and that we need to provide the infrastructure and the things that will continue to grow this region.
As you've said, this council has achieved so much in the way of reports and things, and now you've got sort of something, a template to work on for the future, for the next council as well. But coming back to the point you made about the mosque and that, and there's
Yes.
a lot of criticism of this council. It's been dysfunctional, my words, and you can either agree or disagree, but the point is there's that perception out there in the community. It's been dysfunctional because there's been two sides to the political gain out there in the marketplace, and also the functionality around the mosque. Now, the decisions made, all court cases seem to be exhausted. We've got to get on with it. That's the way reality is. But if you think about the people that have nominated again, most of the councillors are not re-nominating. There is a probably strong chance that some of them will get back again, including yourself, of course. So there's not too many changes. You've really only got two councillors retiring. And if you get back with, say, half at least of the councillors, are we going to have the dysfunction in the future? Or how do you overcome that? Because you don't want to start off the next council term with this sort of animosity, and there has been animosity, no question about it.
Oh, look, there's no doubt, and for me, it's just a lack of understanding of how local government works. We were there when we approved the mosque. What we were doing was approving a building, I guess, on a piece of land.
On a planning basis too, no other reasons.
Exactly, they
just
still
planning.
need to come back and get a building permit. We put certain terms and conditions on that, and that was upheld in the Supreme Court. But in between, what we saw was a bunch of farcical demonstrations, I guess, against something that is held up in our constitution. And for me, it was very bad for Bendigo and placed Bendigo in a very bad light. So we had to work even harder. I wrote a paper, I guess, at the time when they shut down the council meeting, talking about an interfaith council, talking about the issues we needed to confront in terms of a council and a group of people to support that. Quite clearly, two people had an alternative viewpoint.
They're representing a lot of people out there that do have an alternative view to the mosque. And that's the difficulty that, okay, there were two councillors that were really strong against it, and the majority of people voted in favour of course, but that's an alternative view that they are representing out there.
And that's correct, Keith. It's how you go about it, I guess, the demonstrations, the police, and the way the issue was elevated that concerned me. That went way beyond, I believe, what would be called normal behaviour in terms of demonstrating, I guess, your dislike for something and that. And I actually agree with you. I think both sides needed to be put forward, but put forward in a honest way, you know, not with people shouting. I moved the motion to, I guess, build or allow the planning permit to go forward, and I had a crowd just trying to shout me down at the time. That's not democracy.
And that was
That's
terrible.
not listening to the alternative views.
Your point you made there before that was awful. That, you know, out of the mosques debate, we have protests in Bendigo. Protests that are on national news. Bendigo is seen in such bad light when we've got so many other benefits that are going for us, but it's one particular issue that's dragged us down, in my opinion, to be a focal point of all these mass protests, and Bendigo's not that sort of place.
No, look, it isn't. And I was receiving, and the other councils, up to 200 emails a day threatening our lives, threatening our families, threatening our livelihood. So it's fine for them to say, oh, well, we're providing an alternative viewpoint. Do it in the appropriate manner and I'll accept it, you know. But to make threats and to go through what I've been through, I've never experienced anything like it, nor have the other councillors, and I think it's wrong. Yeah.
Well, you must have a pretty good high because you're putting yourself up again. Just on another positive note about the things that have come to fruition, you look at, say, completion of Alhambra, you've got the work started, the new pool, and there's been so many things, but the reports, a residential strategy, and something that's very close to your heart is the Roslyn Park master plan, and that's sort of now going to be implemented and changes made, and well, not so much changes, but hopefully we're going to be able to keep lots of the areas and no longer encroachment, which has been the thing that's happened in the past.
Yeah, and Darryl McClure was very strong on that encroachment, wasn't he? And I take his lead in regards to that. I absolutely agree with him. We need to open that park back up. There's barbed wire through it. There are sporting facilities that have done their own thing. We need to reopen that, maybe reduce the car numbers in there over time. You know, it's one of my visions as well, is to reduce the car numbers, open up the top end. The new hospital will change that. It's always been my view of the Mall and the CBD that how we fix it is regrow Bendigo. That's all the apartments that have been applied for to be built in the area. We repopulate the centre of Bendigo, and consequently we have to supply the open spaces that they require, down to even a barbecue up the top there, Keith, I think is a great idea.
I'd be very pleased with that barbecue. I've been on your back for a while. Two further issues just before we finish. One was, I noticed yesterday that there was Councillor Lisa Raffel having a bit of a go at the Bendigo Business Council, saying, well, their numbers are not that great. There's 650 people have lined up, but there's a lot of retailers that are really not represented. And she was rather critical of the CEO's comments about that the council, this council that you're a part of, hasn't done a real great job. That's to paraphrase some of the comments that she made. And she was going to suggest that she was going to call for no further funding of the Business Council at the last council meeting coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Any thoughts on that one?
I guess Lisa's entitled to her opinions. It was a survey and I read the article, he said, she said. Look, I'm not neither here nor there with it, Keith. People are entitled to their opinions. I think I'll just move on, and as far as I'm concerned, they do a fine job. We need to support those groups. We support a lot of groups that don't always agree with us. I get this all the time in the community. I think we should be bigger than that, and I think we just need to move on.
Very diplomatic. Okay, the last one is, you've had 4 years on council. Looking back in that 4 years' time, we've discovered and discussed some of the issues that weren't that nice. Give me a few ideas that you think that you've been able to achieve and what you're going to be looking for in, say, the next 4 years if you get re-elected. Some of the things that you feel most proud of in that 4-year term of first up on this council.
Oh, Keith, look, there's just such a big raft of things. The independent review, for a start, I fought and was very passionate for that. I think I moved nearly every motion in support of that through the council chamber and spoke to it every time. $1.7 million in ongoing savings, identified $6-7 million in savings from the budget overall, a program of review and renew through council that will be ongoing and will, I guess, drive the changes in council for the next 10 years. They will review, I guess, how we deliver services, whether we're delivering the right services, and continue to find savings. So what that instilled in this council was a process of change. I absolutely applaud the staff and the council for coming on board with that. It's a great bit of work. And I've been involved in a lot of strategies, but for all 69 points to be picked up on and implemented in some way, and we're still working on some, is just absolutely fantastic. That's an ongoing piece of work that I totally stand by and believe is absolutely fantastic for this council. We've also got the rural strategy, which has just been put in place. Same thing, builds on the independent review and the process of making sure we support the rural communities in the appropriate manner. I've always been on about growing jobs. The airport is just one part of that. The duplication of the coal beyond Bendigo to Bridgewater needs to happen. There's an economic driver there along with the Morong Business Park. We need a bypass for Bendigo, and I've identified Leans Road out through to the Allies as the possibility for that. That would take a lot of traffic out of Howard Street. It would link the new business park. The new business park needs to have direct access to ports, to the airport as well. The airport will play a huge role in terms of freight. If we look at, I guess, just moving parcels, we have Alibaba overseas. You order it one day, you get it the next.
Amazing.
It's part of being in a modern society. We can roll out the NBN and we can access the world, but the world still has to be able to access us. It's really important that we build these things if we're going to build a strong, resilient city with jobs. So I'll throw in the railway lines. I'm passionate about that as well. We've got the railway line to Melbourne. We need the rail line from Bendigo to Inglewood reopened. That opens up the freight capacity, I guess, and gives us access to Portland, Geelong, without going through Melbourne. At the moment, Melbourne's a bottleneck in terms of that. As important as it is, and we need to retain those joints, it's important that we add value and we grow jobs in this city. That's how we'll grow this city going forward. What we do is open up a whole raft of opportunities out there. The reason we go to Bridgewater is the Loddon Valley Highway from the north that links all the irrigation areas. Some of those roads up there are very ordinary when you talk to the truck drivers. I watched the trucks going down through Ravenswood the other day. I was out at the interchange looking at that, and there's truck after truck heading to Melbourne with product. We can value add that product here in Bendigo, and hopefully we can then get it to the ports, to the areas it needs to be. It's about driving efficiencies, it's about providing, I guess, the business park in the right place. And while I don't agree with the way we went about locating that in terms of the Carters and the whole thing there, it is necessary, and that is the obvious spot because of those transport links and the access we get from them. So it's issues like that going forward that I need to work on. I also chair the Sayards. I'm deputy chair of the Calder now. I've worked my way up there in regards to that, and that's by winning the respect, I guess, of my fellow councillors from Mildura through to Melbourne, and that I hope to be chair in this new term at some stage, and I'll be pushing very hard for that duplication.
James, thank you so much. Very passionate about that, for looking for Bendigo for the future, and that's what we need, obviously. So thank you for appearing on the Pointy Ann program. I wish you well with the elections, and hopefully, or maybe, we'll be talking sometime in the future. Thank you, James.
Thanks, Keith.